We are back at Soccer Life. David Gott and Tommy Cucho with you. A little bit of live action here on, I want to say it's Thursday. Is it Thursday?
It is Thursday, Goss.
Yeah. Wow, I was like completely unsure about that one. As I got into it, it has been a wild week of action. We have a ton to talk about. We have US Open Cup to break down. US Open Cup, as I wrote on the intro or on the description, we got the full bingo card on US Open Cup. We got rainouts, we got penalty shootouts, we got wild comebacks, and someone got fired. We also had red cards. It was the full Monty on US Open Cup this week. You've got a ton of scoops for us to dig into on the in the ice cream shop as well. But the two biggest stories to start with, one is NYCFC has floated a giant pigeon between all five boroughs in New York, ending at Willets Point, which is, of course, will be the site of their new stadium, but is more famously known as the site of Shea Stadium, originally the greatest stadium in American modern sports.
Let me just go back. This is, you know that you can see something and be like, oh, that was definitely a male made that idea. Like, that was not a female. It was just like, well, dude, what if we float a pigeon on the river in New York City? And like, most people would be like, oh, what is the point of this? But nope, this was great. Dudes rock. I loved every second of that. I can't get over it. It's just perfect. It's beautiful. It's so beautiful. Football heritage, bro.
It absolutely is. It's also one of those things where, like, New York City, while being built, Manhattan is on an island and everything is built around the water. It's not like super water facing. It's not like people like sit around and they're staring out at the water all the time. It's like, oh, there's that giant pigeon. It's like you'd have to go see it. And I don't know that people are necessarily going to see it. And I got texts about it being like, what's the point of this? And it's like, the point is you have a giant pigeon floating around.
Yeah. The point is this is sick, bro.
Even though it's a terrible idea, I'm fully invested and fully here for it. Then apparently it's going to become a statue.
What?
Is that? I didn't know if that was.
What?
I don't know anything if I consumed about this, whether it's real or not.
I don't want any more details because it's perfect as it is.
Okay.
There's going to be a marketing idea. There's going to be something behind it. There's going to be like a logo explainer that's like, well, the feathers on the pigeon here are hued like with just complete inane bullshit. It is perfect as just floated a giant pigeon up and down the river around New York City. And people who don't know NYCFC have no idea why. And I think that's perfect as is.
So here's the issue, because you bring up the explainer, is I currently am staring at the New Jersey Cosmos badge explainer. And you, as noted super New Jersey man.
Oh, did they actually are they naming themselves New Jersey Cosmos?
I don't know, because they were the New York Cosmos. What I'm trying to say is you're out here celebrating the five boroughs, celebrating pigeons in New York, looking away from your own state of New Jersey. You're trying to steal the New York Cosmos at the same time. Tom, I guess I asked this question for you. Do you have any allegiance to anything?
Bro, where did the Cosmos play? Where did they play?
The New York Cosmos?
Yeah, where did they play?
I think they played Hofstra. I think they played on Randall's Island a bit. They played a little bit of indoor as well.
I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
The Brooklyn Nets became ruined when they left New Jersey for Brooklyn. That's just a fact.
No, the New Jersey Nets were also ruined. That was just
Jason Kidd.
That's been bad the whole time. So are you a devout Cosmos fan now?
No. I'll hold my we'll see what happens with the name. Shout out FC Monmouth. That's Central New Jersey. That's the team I support. 4th division here in
Central, baby. Lower division. Speaking of Minnesota Aurora, national semifinal coming up. Home game this weekend. I assume you can't get tickets because it's sold out. But if you live in Minnesota or in the area, you can go and check. Minnesota, of course, one of the teams that was able on the MLS side to continue on in US Open Cup action. Let's start with the big one, though. DC United goes to Nashville. They take a 2-goal lead, Tom. It's going to be a good night for DC United. 2-goal lead on the road, Open Cup's your chance to make a run with the season sort of going against you.
The Nashville's first goal, for those who haven't watched it, just please go watch the highlights. Aaron Herrera is dribbling aimlessly in his own corner in his defensive third. Panics, tries to hit a crossfield pass. It seemed like it was going to be a good pass, except it hit a DC United center back in the back and rolled to a Nashville player as the goalie was out of the net trying to check for a short pass for whatever reason. And that just epitomizes DC United, not just in 2025, but pretty much the last dozen years. Like it's just what I was watching. I was like, yeah, no, of course this is going to end 5-2. Absolutely. Like, and of course that was the goal that they were going to concede. That tells the story of this team. It was poetic.
It was a tough night in general for Aaron Herrera. He gave up the penalty on the second goal. So DC went up 2-0. Bad clearance. I think you got to give a little more credit to Johnny Perez. Ball gets deflected up. He hits it first time, puts it in the window, goalkeeper recovering. So I'm just saying, put a little respect on the name. And then you get a penalty kick. Sam Surge puts it away for the second goal, and the floodgates opened. Jeez. Andy Nahar pried them
what
open.
A night.
Against his former team on the week he was named an all-star as well. I mean, I think you guys are all welcome. We were on this at SoccerWise first this year about how big he was. He ends up with an assist. Surge scores a second in the 72nd. Nahar 9 minutes later with a goal, and then Walker Zimmerman off the bench with a goal. It becomes a 5-2 victory for Nashville, coming back from a 2-0. Everyone leaves the stadium, and DC United's front office tells Troy Lessene and his assistant Zach Prince that they are no longer in the plans for DC United. And the manager who originally signed a 3-year deal to start 2024 is let go after a year and a half in the job. We will talk about the future first, but let's talk about what it's looked like. So a year and a half means 60 matches across all competitions, 16, 25, and 19, the negative 36 goal differential. They are 5 winless in all comps right now. They have won 1 of their last 10 games in Major League Soccer. Now, here's the scary part right now about the league. They're not even in last place in the Eastern Conference because there are so many bad teams. It's not like, they're 1 ahead. Montreal, TFC, and Atlanta all sit below them. It has obviously not been a good run. It has not been a good stretch overall. But Troy Lessene now, a year and a half means 1 complete season, is only 1 of 5 years in a row in which this team has not even qualified for the playoffs. What do you think about as you hear that Troy Lessene's time is finally done and sort of what this club is doing?
Took too long. And for me, like that's on ownership. From what I understand, at least, like, listen, and I feel for Troy Lessene. This wasn't an easy job. But going back to even the start of his reign, he wasn't DC's choice. They thought they were going to hire Dome Torrent. And then after kind of one counter offer, it was like, nope, deal can't be found here. Let's go for somebody else. And this is a coach who would make much less money than Dome Torrent. So you just kind of follow where that takes you, right? You can just assume. So I do feel bad for Troy Lessene. It was a difficult job. One of the DP spots is currently being held by Mateus Click. It's not the best roster in the league, but they were bad. And the head coach has to answer for this. They gave up, 6 goals against San Jose in April? Should have happened then. They gave up 6 or 7. What was it, against Chicago or somebody? Several weeks ago.
Well,
should have happened then.
Gave up 7 against. Or sorry, Chicago gave up 7 against Nashville. Yeah, 7-1 Chicago.
They've conceded 4 or more goals in 10 of the 60 games that Troy Lessene and the staff coach. That is unacceptable, right? Like, so in one hand, I get it, man. Like, it's not a great roster, but like, I don't like. In the chat are like talking about scapegoat or like, oh man, and like, yes, like DC's problems go much deeper, but this was absolutely one of their problems, and this is a good way to solve it. And not long after, like, I broke the news that they've agreed to term with a Swiss manager named Rene Weiler, and he's going to be the next head coach. Obviously, this has been in the works for a while. That, hey, we're moving on from Troy Lessene.
And they didn't just run into a Swiss head coach on the street after last night and be like, hey, you want to coach the team?
What I do know is they made a really strong push for Jim Curtin. I believe they talked to Gio Savarese. I'm sure that they talked to a lot of other people as well, but like, all underpins that this was a long time coming, and DC have to move into a new era. It's going to be a busy summer, and again, hopefully they can have some sustainability. Hopefully they can have, again, the front office gets in some of the right signings and they keep a plan for a little while, but we'll see.
I find this one tough because on the one hand, you say DC needs to move it into a new era. Nothing about letting Troy Lessene go and hiring this new manager feels new. It just feels like DC United the same. The The issues that exist at the club are bigger and different, as you explained, coming all the way through this hiring process, going back through 5+ years, going back 10+ years. And I think most fans, there's not a lot of hope that this means anything or changes anything. I say that in the same time being like, look at Vancouver and what they're capable of doing. Talent doesn't mean everything in Major League Soccer. If you are cohesive and play hard and motivated, you can do things and be competitive. And so I think it's fair to say that DC hasn't done those things, and that's on the manager, while also acknowledging this is just a bad team. It's just, there are a lot of MLS teams who are like, yeah, if those pieces were moved around or put together right. I don't know what a lot of this DC stuff is. Like, you're mining for attacking talent in the Polish division where there's just not a huge history of success coming out of it multiple times. As you said, you are paying a DP to not play for another team, by the way. It's not like he's gone off and done well, which I think is a bigger indictment on you and the way it's set up. I mean, you see the gravity of Christian Benteke even in this game, right? Both goals are just because of his presence. So there is obviously that big piece of talent, and there's some other parts of this that you could like or could fit better in different groups. But consistently, they went out, they signed a young international goalkeeper who has not settled in, which is like not shocking in any way. They have not spent well at center back, and so have consistently played players who had proven on other teams they were not starters in Major League Soccer. They have filled at central midfield, but don't like their options. And I don't know that all of it is cohesive and all fits in together. Let's move on to now, like you said, Rene Weiler coming over is the report from you, I believe, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's real.
What are you talking about? Yeah, it's happening.
Tom,
show a little trust. How about that?
We're going through a lot of stuff today. I'm pretty sure you're on all of it, but the stuff you're not, I got to make sure that I throw a little shade on other people, and I got to remember whose shade goes where. Rene Weiler was released from Servette FC in Switzerland, which I think serviette in French is napkin. So it's not the same word, but I'm calling them Napkin FC. He was released at the end of May, so at the end of this season. He took over as manager to start 2023-2024 season. He spent the year as manager. He won the Swiss Cup for the club, which was the first trophy in 20 years. He finished, Switzerland has playoffs, so he finished in the playoffs. But
Americans ruining everything, huh?
100%, yeah. I just had this conversation with someone where it's like, have you ever heard of a league that does playoffs? Because I think they found out Scotland did. And I was Belgium, Switzerland, Mexico, Brazil, and they were like, no, but like all league. And you're like, oh, okay, cool, right. So we're only talking about Wrexham and Real Madrid. Just now that I know that, I can make sure. So they've done well under him. After his first year as manager, he moved up to sporting director and then was let go. They finished second this season, and he was let go at the end of the year. I found an interview he did with a Egyptian outlet, because he used to the job before this manage Al Ahly, which obviously gets me hyped. We're going to mention Al Ahly multiple times in this show, which is already one of my favorite shows we've ever done. And he said this: I played with Al Ahly using the same approach both before and after the pandemic. I don't believe the team's performance has changed as some people think. I like my team to play direct football towards the goal, and I don't prefer too much possession that might bore the fans. I always aimed for big wins and didn't enjoy winning by just one goal. This approach made the fans enjoy Al Ahly games with me. Matias Almeida, come on down, baby. All 11 players on every corner kick. If the goalkeeper is not in the attacking box on the first corner kick this team takes under their new manager, we riot.
I don't know what to make of this, man. So, again, what I say is so much fun about MLS, but sometimes makes it difficult for us. Like, this isn't the NBA where you know the batch of coaches, you know the batch of players, the trades and possibilities. Like, on one hand, maybe he's Olaf Melberg and he stinks and he's gone after 13, 14 games. Or maybe he's Jesper Sorensen and is awesome and makes the team infinitely better. Looking at his resume, he hasn't stayed anywhere for he has not stayed somewhere for 2 seasons. I don't think ever. Maybe at the beginning of his career. Like, Al Ahly was a season and change. Anderlecht was a season and change.
Which was a pandemic, by the way.
Al Ahly?
Yeah, he left in 2020, and I think it was like his family couldn't get into the country and he couldn't get out and stuff.
Okay, well, any of the other 9 places he's coached, has there been pandemics there too? Just saying.
You really got me with that one, Sam.
My point stands. So yeah, we'll see what happens, but I don't have a great read on this. I do know that so he coached Andy Nahar at Anderlecht. Everything comes back to Andy Nahar as always.
Hell yeah.
So there's a connection there. That kind of helped in their vetting process. They were asking people like around Andy about this. Like, we'll see what happens again. Like I said, they did make a really strong run at Jim Curtin. He politely declined. But yeah, we'll see where they go from here. And I don't know exactly what to make of it. He's won trophies though at the clubs, even though he hasn't stayed there long, which is interesting. Like Anderlecht, I think he got fired like a few months into the second season after winning the league the previous year, and Ali, he won the league before leaving the next season. So there's that. They have trophies, but not a long longevity. We'll see what happens, and it can't be any worse.
Yeah. It is a club that has said from the top down that they'd like to play a front foot pressing aggressive style. It was
except for when they hire Wayne Rooney and then he wants to be mid block. Except for when it's Hernan Lozada and they want to be high pressing. Like,
well, Hernan Lozada would go into that, which is high pressing.
Yeah, well, Lozada, they were busy getting rid of all of the players that they signed under Lozada because of Wayne Rooney, and then Wayne Rooney left, and they were trying to get rid of all of the players that Wayne Rooney wanted that now didn't fit the next system, while they were signing players that they, assuming it was going to be Dome Tarrant. So it's very unfortunate.
How often do you sit around and think what's Ravel Morrison doing right now with his life? Because I think about it all the time.
I think he did an interview with The Athletic where he was pretty much just like, I'm not a kid anymore. It's not fair to me to for the mistakes I made in my past. It was like, brother, 2 years ago, Andre Blake went on a documentary and was like, get this guy out of Jamaica. Not just the national team, just never near me ever again. Like, dude, I think you earned the reputation. I think it's fair to say.
And this conversation is why I think there's not a ton of hope right now with DC, which was like they picked a direction to move into. And the moment Rooney flashed across their eyes, they went for him. It's the same with this Pogba stuff, right? They held space and spent time and energy for a player who probably wasn't going to come. And even if he was never really part of a plan. There was
nothing serious there. It was, hey, we want our name connected with him. And again, this is I think for head coaches and front office, this is like a bottom 2 or 3 job in MLS.
Yeah.
Which
might be why you're going and finding a manager who just got fired in Switzerland because, take away Jim Curtin. I think there are other people who wouldn't jump at this opportunity. And then you're starting to have a conversation, which remember last year when Mikey Lopez, who's done a great job, was hired and Bobby sort of walked us through and was like, well, here are your options. You want to go assistant unknown? You want to go assistant who's been out? You want to go USL? And here's your international options. And like you said, this is like the crazy part of Major League Soccer. Jesper Sorensen is going to win Manager of the Year most likely this year. And no one. Okay.
He's in the mix.
Yeah. No one knew anything about him. He didn't know anything about Major League Soccer. He came over. It worked instantly. The laundry list of people on the other side of that is immense. And so you come down to system and style, but you come down to cohesion and leadership and management and all of that. And I think that's where the worry comes around DC United. And none of that is sort of a personal knock on the person you're bringing in Rene Weiler. So it's going to be fascinating to watch this. The one last little quote from this, by the way, was he sort of made a comment, Al Ahly, obviously massive club in a huge country. He said, I don't like to be in the spotlight all the time. It didn't bother me that fans constantly tried to talk to me and take pictures, but that's just not my personality. So DC United might be a good fit for him. He really wants to go under the radar when he's away from the games. Okay, let's continue on here. By the way, if you are watching live, go listen to the podcast after this because we're going to do an interview with Reggie Cannon, which I think I forgot to mention off the top. If you're listening to the podcast, you'll hear the Reggie Cannon interview coming up at the end of the show. DC United fans, let us know what you think. We do have a comment here from a Atlanta fan who goes, DC's ahead of the standings than Atlanta, and Ronnie Dylas still has a job. He's a year behind, but it is a reason for necessary angst. Let's go through the rest of the Open Cup results and what they mean for these teams. And the big one was Austin getting the penalty kick victory at San Jose.
That game was nuts.
It was a wild game. Austin came from behind twice to equalize, the first time through a penalty kick for Brandon Vasquez. And then Benji Kokanovic scores in the 98th minute. Austin gets another penalty kick to force things to a shootout in which Austin gets the victory. But unfortunately for Austin, after moving on, going to a semifinal, they are now in a position where if they were to win that semi, they would host the U.S. Open Cup final. It ends on a negative note with Brandon Vasquez going down with an injury that we have just now finally gotten the official report is a torn ACL for him. So that means he's out. We know for the rest of this year. We don't know how long into next year. He scored on that first penalty kick. He was a huge part of the rebuild for them this offseason, a massive signing. He's someone we have both covered for a long time. Great personality, cares about his game, cares about the fans at the clubs he plays at. I think was really excited to come back into MLS as a DP and sort of be seen as the face of a team and to carry a team. And it was a slow start to this year. And now he won't get the opportunity for a long time to do things at his highest level. It's just really, really tough to see.
It sucks, man. We love Brandon Vasquez on the show. I think he's an excellent striker. I'm sure in his head he was still like, hey, man, if I put together good form, why can't I break into the World Cup team? So, like, that dream is, if not officially over, pretty much. Like, I just no words, man. I feel so bad. And like, he knew it when he went down. It was a non-contact. Covered his face immediately as he was stretchered off and stuff. Like, that just kills me just to watch any player going down like that. It's so terrible. And in Austin's side, like Brandon Vasquez, like he had underperformed some of his XG. He was still scoring goals. He was not the problem in this team, and he is the building block, a leader to what they're trying to build and what they're trying to do. And now they just won't have him for the better part of a year, and that just sucks.
And it just puts them in a really tough spot from a team point of view because Major League Soccer, as we are seeing with the LA Galaxy, is not built to miss players of this magnitude in your team. And so I think he was supposed to tie a lot together. They have Diego Rubio, who is like a pretty close comp when he's on. Diego Rubio, unfortunately, is someone who has also struggled with injuries, which was why you're not reliant on him. And no one really went out and gave him the contract maybe he would have expected over the last two off seasons because he has performed well, but just no one trusts him and no one's really able to do that. And so Austin's going to have to be hopeful. Obviously, transfer window opening, so maybe they make a move here. It's really tough timing, and it's just a miserable thing. This was a guy who really wanted to like carry this team and be a part of it. And as you said, has performed up to his level, and a lot of it's built around it. Bukhari getting to the end line, getting crosses in, playing in transition off of Brandon Vasquez as the initial piece. Like all of that was built around his skill set and his ability. And now they're going to have to figure out how to deal with it going forward. So for Austin, obviously the flip side in this is a way to save your season. You're in a semifinal and they will be going to Minnesota. Minnesota had initial hosting rights. Minnesota come from behind win against the Chicago Fire at home. They go down 1-0 to a Brian Gutierrez penalty kick. Omar Gonzalez picks up a red card. And it was tough for Minnesota. Like, it was not an easy game for a Minnesota United team. I think that I would expect up a man at home to make things a little bit simpler for themselves. But they're able to survive, Tom. They're able to get through. I thought Robin Ludd was phenomenal. Taniolo Shea on the opening goal right out of halftime. A ridiculous pass to open up the game. Something that we hadn't seen from him early on in the season. And in the end, Minnesota is able to survive. But I think it's a funny game because the convo we had going into this was like, are we going to learn if Minnesota, their style is set up for postseason play? They don't need the ball, so maybe that makes things easier, but also they can't really use the ball. Going up a man, I think, made it harder for them. Then they had to play in possession. They finished with 59% possession. And I think they were struggling with the balance of how many numbers do we throw forward? How desperate are we to get the goal? And then once they got the goal, then they sit in how they comfortably are. And I think it opened up too much space for Chicago in a game in which you're up a man and just see the game out and dominate. So on the one hand, they win. They are on the road to hosting a final. They will host the semi. They would host the final if they got there. On the other hand, I think you still see the holes in some of this project.
Yeah, I think that's fair. For me, I choose to focus on, like you said, they advance, they get through. It wasn't always pretty, but in the end, it was a job well done. Something that's interesting, we argued about long throws or whatever. John Mueller, our pal, is very, very smart, wrote something for The Guardian that you should go check out about Minnesota and the long throws and everything. That was just an interesting read I had this morning. So we'll see. For me, they can, why not go on and win this? They should, they are It's stupid to say about a semifinalist, of course. In that vein, my biggest takeaway from this game was look at Chicago's lineup. I'm really, really disappointed. A quarterfinal of the Open Cup, and they heavily rotated. Why?
Yeah.
To be ready for another one of a million regular season or Leagues Cup games or whatever they're like. It's just so disrespectful for a team that has had no success, none, for 13 years, whatever it's been. They made the playoffs one time. They finally have a little bit of positive momentum, and you rotate like 8 players from your starting 11 in a again Minnesota. We both really like. We think they're really good. That's a winnable game. And guess what? One of the people you rotate in gets sent off, and it's just. I just really couldn't believe that of where they're sitting. And yeah, you want to use your whole squad. I get it. That's important. Rotate in the next game. This is a quarterfinal of a cup competition. You could put a trophy. You could win a trophy. You could help continue to galvanize the fan base and everything else. It's just you're telling your fans, yeah, we didn't really care about it. We'd rather finish, ninth in the East than focus on potentially winning this trophy. And I just don't like it.
And on top of all of that, and it was complicated by the red card. The last sub they made was Jonathan Bamba. So they were trying to not play Jonathan Bamba as much as they could in this game, who is one of their 2 DPs that a lot of their attack is relying on. Yeah. And for all the holes we've seen in his game so far this year, I think still just figuring himself out as a finisher and being able to finish off plays. Don't worry, Tom walked away, but he can still hear me. He was the bright spot for them when he came on and pushed the game and created chances. And so I think that, like you said, for Chicago was well, what was the plan here overall? And yet they were leading 1-0 in this game. So I think a lot of question marks for both these teams coming out of it, but a huge opportunity now for Minnesota. They will host the semifinal, and then the winner of that in Austin would host the final no matter what. Doesn't matter who comes out of the East. Now on the East, you have Nashville, who are already through. They don't know where they will play because if the Red Bulls beat Philadelphia in a game that was rained out and moved to August 13th, then the Red Bulls would host Nashville in the semifinal. If Philadelphia hosting Red Bulls on August 13th wins, then Philadelphia would travel to Nashville for the semifinal, and then the winner of that would travel to the West team no matter what and who it is. Obviously, Red Bull Philly doesn't end up happening because of that rain out, and this is just, you knew this would happen. So the game gets moved to August 13th. Of course, these 2 teams are scheduled to play on August 16th.
No way. Are you joking?
So they will now play twice in a week. And it's jammed between, by the way, those things that something comes up and you're like, I'll figure that out when I need to.
My entire life, yeah.
Forgot about Leagues Cup. Forgot about how it's formatted. Forgot about how it works. So I'm looking at this schedule being I don't understand. Why is Philly playing a league game while Red Bulls are playing a Leagues Cup game? And then how are they scheduling games right after this? How do they know what's happening? To be clear, I still don't fully understand. But Leagues Cup this year is this weird table, all the MLS teams on one side, all the League MX teams on the other side. You play 3 teams from the other league, and then you go back into your massive table. You finish in your standings. So the games are pretty condensed. It's July 27th to August 9th or August 10th is all the Leagues Cup games. It actually might be August 7th. This is going well. I might name another date if I could sneak one in. You play 3 games in a row, basically a group stage, a quick tournament. And then the knockouts will occur as midweek games going forward until the final. And so right after Leagues Cup ends, regular season resumes. So Philly has a game on August 9th at home against TFC. They are not in Leagues Cup because they played in CONCACAF and they're in Open Cup and they're in too many competitions. Red Bulls will have played 3 games in a week, finishing then with RSL at home on August 10th after playing Juarez in Leagues Cup on Wednesday, and then we'll travel down to Philly that Wednesday. Point being, Philly's going to have a little bit of a schedule advantage with all of this jammed in there. At that point, Philly, of course, will also be the home team, and then we'll do it all again 3 days later, which I'm sure will be as electric as possible coming off the back of that matchup, and then we will know what the semifinal looks like. So you assume for Nashville, I don't know, actually. If you're Nashville, are you rooting for Philadelphia because you just want to be at home? Or is Red Bulls an easier quote-unquote matchup that you don't mind traveling?
I have no idea. All of that is making my brain just completely
I
flatten.
knew you were gonna be mad.
A lot of logistics. It's funny. You again, you joked about those things where it's just like, no, I'll figure that out later. I've been really bad at planning anything, or like it just feels like all I'm doing is putting out fires or just a to do list. And there's just so many things in my life. I was like, oh crap, I said I was gonna figure that out. Okay, I guess I gotta do that now. So I got nothing until we get closer. I was
Okay,
not ready for the Leagues Cup combo.
you and Leagues Cup are locked in, and
Summer of soccer, baby.
yeah, I can't believe this is part of it. And we will learn all about that when we get there. But congratulations to Minnesota and Austin, as well as Nashville, by the way. We kind of blew through it because of DC United firing. Huge season for Nashville. Turnaround, second in the East. And I think you saw it in this game, right? It's a messy start. It's not what they would like. You give up like a screamer opportunity early. Then you get the own goal from Jack Mayer, and you're thinking, okay, things could go poorly here. Overall, it was a strong starting lineup. Walker Zimmerman not starting, coming back from national team. I think Wessam would be the other, I would say, is a starter that wasn't in this group. Otherwise, it's a strong team. They never looked panicked. Like, this looked like a Nashville team that believed they would get back into it. Surge, Golden Boot leader right now, continuing to feel, in form, look good. Tagseth just covers every blade of grass, creates the game. And as we said, Andy Nahar is an all-star for a reason. He is a true difference maker,
Awesome, man.
attacking from that right back position, both creating and scoring. It was kind of cool to see DC fans be like, well, it's nice to see Andy smile. Like, he means so much to DC United, and it's just been a tough career for him with injuries. He's just not been able to remain at his peak. And for DC fans, like, it's tough right now, but they got a little bit of solace in that, and it was nice to see DC fans acknowledge that.
No, I was laughing at the idea of just like, well, everything sucks for us right now.
Yeah.
At least if somebody's gonna do it to us, it's Andy.
Yeah.
So I love that. Again, he was one of the first like real true homegrown, like again, one of the success stories of the developmental academy and going to Europe and everything he did. Like, I thought when he left MLS a couple years ago, it was gonna be the last we saw of him, like you said, the injury issues and everything. Dude, he's been the best right back in the league right now. Like, he's been playing more, obviously, with Alex Freeman gone at the goal. It's very clearly the two of them. And Andy Nahar, I think, over the last few weeks is just very clearly the best right back in MLS this season. Well deserved for the All-Star. His goal, which did you like more, guys? His goal or his Trivella assist?
Yeah. The pass is pretty filthy.
And again, that's not even the two traits that you talk about when you talk about Andy Nahar. You talk about how unique he is in his dribbling and the positions he picks up and how valuable he is to the attack in ways that fullbacks, like, not in a typical, like, overlapping, get to the byline, cross, whatever. And he has this incredible game where it's like, oh, yeah, that's, like, his fourth and fifth skill that, like, he just dominated with. Like, so long may it continue. Playing with a broken pinky, I believe, broken finger, something like that. So just strength for safe, rub some dirt on it, get back in the game. Shout out Andy Nahar.
And congrats to Nashville. This is going to be a huge cup run for them. If they do host a semifinal, like, I hope it's a huge atmosphere. BJ Callahan's got to be in the coach of the year conversation as well. It's his first full season as head coach. They've changed the way they play. They've changed the results they've gotten. And if they finish top 4 in the East, I think he's easily a finalist for that as well. Let's move into our ice cream shop because it's a big one before we have to disappear and go talk to Reggie Cannon. And let's start with the big name, Rodrigo De Paul. We've talked about it a couple of times, Tom, but you've got some new reporting on it.
Yeah, this deal is getting closer. Rodrigo De Paul is given his green light. My personal terms aren't a problem. And Miami and Atletico Madrid are getting closer on a fee. The fee is going to be in the region of probably 15 to 20 million is our understanding. Again, fluid because talks are ongoing, need to figure it out. This is my understanding, as somebody who does this for a living and constantly trying to talk to teams, to people. If you talk to 3 different people at Inter Miami, you might get 3 different answers. I feel safe in saying this can't happen without a DP leaving, and that DP would be Sergio Busquets. Like, Alba just signed a new contract. Messi's obviously Messi. Like, Busquets would be the guy. I don't know if that means he'd retire, but, like, I was at least told by one person, just, like, don't say that 100% definitively. And I don't know if they know something, or I don't know if it's like dude, you never can say anything definitively about MLS rules, right? Like, I had somebody from another team, because I was like, again, I've got this from several people. It's like, there is no way to sign him without a DP spot, right? Like, and then somebody from another MLS team, a front office executive, texted me and goes, how about this? And I got 3 paragraphs of how could they get around this? Yeah. Could it be a loan? All this stuff. Right. So all that is to say, I feel confident that this would require a DP spot right now for him to join right now. But
And
I try not to say anything definitively on roster rule stuff and and everything else, so we'll see. But
and
again,
I
the news is negotiations are advancing with Atletico Madrid. Atletico Madrid are open to this departure. They won't get, like, I think that they were wanting like 25 million. They're not getting that, but they're going to get a pretty significant fee for a 31-year-old midfielder who's out of contract next summer.
I guess that just there's an obvious question, but the whole conversation is about him joining immediately. Like none of this is joins in December or January, whatever it would be.
My understanding is this is talks for an immediate deal.
Okay. It would not be shocking at this point that Sergio Busquets was like, yeah, I don't really need this anymore. And it comes up and he's like, cool, I'm happy to live in Miami and come to the games like we do for the Miami Heat, and I'll just be posted up.
Blaze been tweeting that was he transitioned to an ambassador role really quickly.
Yeah.
But no, again, like, jokes aside, like I understand why an MLS fan of any other club would be like, this is nonsense. It's like this he can't join without it being a DP. Like I understand the stance, and like I'm sure the league office understands this too. So very, very curious. Like, again, I feel pretty confident that this would mean Busquets has to leave for De Paul to join, but like I don't know, dude. Nothing is certain except for the big black hole at the end.
We talked about this on the last show. Like the best way to spend $15 to $20 million in MLS is not on a defensive midfielder. He would be an improvement right now to Busquets because Busquets is on his last legs, if past that, and Rodrigo De Paul is closer to his prime, and the relationship is obvious. He's Messi's bodyguard. They won a World Cup because he's really good at being Messi's bodyguard. He's an awesome player. It is not the tradition to use these spots. Inter Miami has been fortunate in that there is other talent that's willing to come to Inter Miami on different types of contracts because everyone wants to play with Messi. And like, they would be better tomorrow if they had Rodrigo De Paul as their DP defensive midfielder than they are today. That can still exist in a world in which it's not the best way to spend the money. It's also not our money. So who cares? And they would be better set up to win MLS Cup. It doesn't matter anymore because the Club World Cups happen, but like in the whole, like, does this get them better globally? Probably not that much. Does this change their reality if they make it to CONCACAF next year against a Liga MX team by a ton? I'm not sure, but it makes them better tomorrow.
It's going to help. Absolutely.
Yeah, but enough? I don't know.
Yeah. I will say, so like, I agree. Again, like I wouldn't recommend, generally speaking, to an MLS team to spend this money on a 31-year-old box-to-box midfielder. But Miami aren't the normal MLS team because, like, if they instead of taking this money and signing like a sick DP number 10, like that'd be fun. But like they need what Rodrigo De Paul brings more than anything.
For
like
sure.
Again, that's still a steep price to pay, and there are ways to get that without a DP spot. But like, more and more, I'm kind of talking myself into like, okay, like I might actually recommend. Like, again, this isn't the general rule, but like, it's like, dude, maybe this totally works for Miami, but who knows?
To answer Alex's question, no, none of the Miami DPs can get down to max TAM. They're all too far away on the number they signed. I think the Jordi Alba number came out at $6 million, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so he's way too far away from the max TAM number to be able to buy him down. Busquets is too far away as well, and obviously Messi's the highest paid player in Major League Soccer and just shouldn't play on a max TAM contract even if he was willing to, which he's not, which makes a ton of sense. So we'll continue to monitor this one. We'll continue to talk about this one. Not the only big potential signing, though, coming in. It sounds like Columbus Crew have maybe ID'd their replacement for Cucho Hernandez after kind of making a couple of Band-Aid moves early on this year to sort of continue on without Cucho. They brought in Gazdag. They brought in Aliyu. They've obviously promoted Jason Russell-Rowan to a stronger position. Talk about a pass, by the way. His pass in that Seattle game, unreal for that through ball. And now they have identified a player who just scored a couple goals here in the U.S. in Wessam Abou Ali. He is a Palestinian international at Al Ahly. So now the second time we get to bring up the Egyptian Giants in this show, which obviously I love. And he would be a DP signing for them at the center forward position.
Yeah, Wessam Abou Ali, like you said, he scored 3 goals at the Club World Cup for the Egyptian Giants Al Ahly this summer. Really highly rated player. He scored 1 billion goals in Egypt. He was born in Denmark, came through the Danish leagues before ending up in Egypt. Palestine International seems like a really, really serious signing if they're able to get it done. We'll see as the summer progresses. But Columbus, when they would push back on the idea of like, oh, DP number 9, like positions like that doesn't matter. Like what we care most about is say the qualities or like again with Daniel Gazdag, it's like, hey, like we know he can score goals, like doesn't need to be a forward, right? Like so they keep it fluid, and I think this is a guy who could do a lot of really good things, and he'd be a super super interesting signing. Again, player in his prime, just did what he did at the Club World Cup. I would only have positive things to say if they're able to get this done. I don't have a price point, or I don't know if there's been any. I don't think that there's been like a formal bid on paper, but I do know that they really like this player, and he's somebody to watch.
I do know because, I keep a finger on the pulse of everything going on across the North African region. I do know that the convo coming out of Club World Cup was like, they think there could be a European move for him. If not, he's happy to come back to Al Ahly. The question mark for him on his resume is like, he played in Scandinavia and his native Denmark for a while. Didn't really score goals at the top division. Like found most of his playing time, lower divisions, bounced back up and did okay, ends up at Al Ahly, and that's where he's really exploded onto the scene. And so I think people are trying to figure out like how do those numbers transfer. What we saw at the Club World Cup is he's a legitimate 9 because of his size, but he was very comfortable going out into the channels. He's very comfortable with the ball at his feet, but he could also finish, in the air or off crosses. And no one's Cucho. Like we can't call anyone a Cucho replacement. Cucho was the second best player in Major League Soccer behind Messi the entire time he was here. He was capable of things other guys can't do, right? Yep. He was like Evander and Hugo Kuipers rolled into one, whatever you want to call him. So that part's impossible to say, but Columbus has struggled to finish, and just having a true center forward. And I think there's enough other parts to his game to link into the Columbus DNA of like, now you're setting up Diego Rossi, you're pushing Mo Farsi and Max Arfstein into dangerous areas, that it feels like a really good signing. I'm curious how much of it is Club World Cup related of like, you saw him here, you saw him against an MLS team, you saw him play.
I doubt it.
Yeah, you'd assume most of it's in their scouting network and has already been discussed. And maybe they're pissed that he went and scored in Club World Cup because it just makes it harder and more expensive for them to deal with. But I think for Columbus, it would be exciting because this is a team that is good enough to win MLS Cup again. And they are not there right now. And all of the pieces are there except for that last finisher. And maybe he comes in and it makes life easier for Gazdag and other players like that. And that's like the last piece that you're looking for. And so it would be a really big signing for them. Tom, give us an update here on Timo Werner and if Red Bulls, when they play on August 13th in the Open Cup, will have a chance with him.
So negotiations are ongoing with Timo Werner. He was reportedly told by RB Leipzig, you don't have a future here. Like even if you don't leave, you're not making the match day roster. Like it's time to move on. He didn't like. There's been a contract proposal, and the Red Bulls and him are not super close. Like Werner would like them to match his current contract, and that's not happening. So negotiations are ongoing. Like this makes too much sense, I think, for all parties for it to not happen. But again, that's no guarantee in this business. So I do hope that they're able to get this done. Like Timo Werner, I think he'd be awesome in this league, and it sure as hell beats not being in the matchday squad at RB Leipzig. But again, like can't blame anybody for trying to get their money. So we'll see how that's resolved. But again, for me, this feels more just about negotiating rather than like him not wanting this option. And hey, who knows? Maybe a German team or an English team or whoever comes in and says, hey, actually, would you want to stay in Europe? Like that's always the risk while you kind of wait while you're negotiating. But as of right now, my understanding is there are no teams presenting themselves for Timo Werner other than the New York Red Bulls.
It would be, I've said it, I think it would be a huge signing. I think he would make a ton of sense, and I think it would fit in really well. Patrick Osman blessing Charlotte with his presence a little bit more in training. Your report was he wants to go to Derby, but Charlotte has said until the deal is done, he plays for Charlotte FC.
More continuing of the icy relationship between Ajamuk's camp and the Charlotte FC. So again, they've agreed in principle with Derby. They put everything kind of on hold to like do the final details until after the Gold Cup final. They've been working on it this week. There is like, I still get told that like, hey, there are still other clubs that like, hey, maybe like as I reported on the show previously, again, it has been delivered to me in no uncertain terms. Patrick Ajamang wants Derby County. He's only going to Derby County. That is where his mindset is right now. So again, I'm still firmly expecting that that's where this is going to land, but hey, maybe that's not going to discourage other teams from maybe trying, but yeah, they're talking about setting up a medical. They're figuring out those final details. The medical, they were hoping to be able to do it, now or whatever.
Yeah.
So the conversations, I guess, are still ongoing. But like you said, he's Charlotte FC's player until he's not. That's their stance. And he was a full participant in training, which I don't know, man. I would not go near a 50-50 if I was him.
Yeah. I love this comment from Phil in the chat. Says top of the East could be quite the arms race this summer. We just went through it. Inter Miami, potential new GP. New York Red Bulls, potential one. Charlotte potentially making a move. Columbus bringing in a big one. And on top of all of that, FC Cincinnati have made a U22 signing from Venezuela. I immediately opened up the article and said, how the hell do I pronounce this name? And I got this message from Michele Giannone.
Echenique. Echenique. Enver Echenique. Enver Echenique.
What I love about that is I didn't run any of that on loop. He was like, I'm going to say this 5 times because David is such an idiot that he's going to butcher this. And every time I listened to it, by the time I got to the 5th one, I laughed all the time. And I've listened to it a lot of times.
I was going to say.
And then Michele's like, why don't you just play the voice note on the show? And I was like, I actually think I'm capable of doing that. So that's a really good idea.
Too much.
So now that we know he is a U22 initiative signing from Venezuela, a winger, it makes a lot of sense. They've had success in positions like that. The assumption being that it won't be for he won't be a difference maker for a little bit of time. Let's close out on this one. Reminder, if you're listening to the podcast, Reggie Cannon interview coming up in just a moment. If you're watching live, the show will come out in about an hour or so, and the Reggie Cannon interview will be in there. Morgan in the chat says, Michele sounds like he's mansplaining to you. That's probably how Michele feels most of the time. Yeah, and it's also how he feels most of the time when we're having conversations. Tom, bring us in for a little RSL conversation.
Yeah, so let's just do all this together. Real Salt Lake. Diego Luna, Celta Vigo are among the teams that have interest in him. There have been no contact with Real Salt Lake, so super preliminary. It would not be cheap for Real Salt Lake. Again, I still am assuming he's staying for all the reasons we've laid out previously because of the great fit, how important he is to the team. He's getting called into the national team from here, and again, we'll see. But hey, maybe a big bid comes in. So Diego Luna, Celta Vigo, that's real. There's a couple other clubs in Europe that have at least reached out to his camp. We'll see how that goes. Real Salt Lake has also announced that Nelson Palacio has been loaned to FC Zurich, which opens a U22 spot, which means they can indeed sign a DP this summer. They're working on a couple deals. Again, I'm expecting a forward to be done. I'm expecting maybe another attacker and probably a fullback. So Real Salt Lake are going to be very busy this summer. Got to finish that DP9 search, and they're working on it.
That kills me, right? I'm a huge Nelson Palacio guy and would love other teams in Major League Soccer to have brought him in to play. So
Me too.
He is one of those dudes where you can feel the force when he's just covering ground and being yeah, I'm just going to run through everything. And we'll see what happens later. And a pretty good passer as well. But RSL haven't used him. So it makes a ton of sense. And that's unfortunate. The Diego Luna thing we talked about on the last show, so we don't have to dig in. This is a unique situation with a Home World Cup coming up and the way you've worked yourself into the group. He will have to decide with his camp internally what's best for his career and what does he want to do. Taking a shot at playing for a big club and going to Spain and moving your career along now, if you end up not starting at a World Cup or not being on a World Cup team, that's acceptable. If that's what the decision you make and the way you go about it, and obviously all of this will be done with the blind confidence he's had his entire career, which is wherever I go, if I get a shot, I can take advantage because he has. That is who he has been. A note here, we actually did an interview yesterday with Diego Luna's former U14 teammate with the San Jose Earthquakes in Boulder. We are going to run that interview next week. It was really fun to connect with him. We are huge fans of his game and similar to Diego Luna, he has taken his own career in his own hands and he has pushed himself into some really tough situations and he has accomplished a lot already. And it was great to get to know him a little bit more. So we're going to run that interview next week because we have Reggie Cannon here and a little bit of breaking news around Reggie, of course, with the Court of Arbitration and Sport case that finished. So we're going to go into that interview here on the podcast. And if you're watching live, reminder, you can go get it there as well. And it'll be coming up in a little bit. So really excited about everything we're doing. If you've missed it, we interviewed Izzy Rodriguez on the podcast yesterday. She's coming off her goal on her U.S. Women's National Team debut, playing for the #1 team in NWSL. We've got some more interviews lined up for you next week as well, and we've got some big news around everything. If we haven't already said, we're going to be in Austin. We're going to be doing an event on Tuesday evening. It'll be slightly before / going into the Skills Challenge. So if you are not going to the Skills Challenge, you can come to our show, and we will watch it all together as well when our show is finished. Myself, Tom, Jordan, and some other really special guests that we're going to announce next week are going to be coming in for that one. It's going to be a ton of fun. We have a bunch of really cool ideas so that everyone can be involved. Everyone can be sort of connected. We're going to record some stuff that we're going to put out afterwards that everyone's going to have an opportunity, if they'd like to record on their own. So if you're in the Austin area, make plans to come to Haymaker is the bar that we're going to be hosting at. So make plans to come there and circle it on your calendar for Tuesday and tell everyone you know that you're going to want to come and that they should come with you. All right. Thank you to everyone for watching here live. Thank you to everyone listening to the podcast as well. Now that I did the sound thing from Michele, this popped up for me.
I don't know who is a Tom Boger.
And I do. Tom Boger is my favorite. Thank you to you, Tom, for being here. Shout out to everyone.
I'll see you in a couple hours, David Goss, in real life.
I will see
put
you
a picture in the
person. And they never heard from them again. Tommy Scoops and Broboken once again.